I always thought those sounds above my bedroom were nothing, just the house settling, maybe some animals in the walls. But the night I climbed into that attic and found him kneeling there in the darkness, whispering my name like a prayer, I realized something had been watching me for months, and what he showed me in those final moments made me understand that some nightmares don't end when you wake up. The house on Maple Ridge Drive seemed perfect when I first saw it. It was a modest two-story colonial with pale yellow siding and white shutters, tucked into a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. Or at least that's what the realtor told me. The price was reasonable, almost too reasonable for the area, but I chalked that up to the previous owner passing away and the family wanting a quick sale. I was 28, finally stable enough in my career as a software developer to afford my own place, and I was tired of throwing money away on rent. This felt like the right move. I remember the first night I spent in that house. It was mid-September, and the air had that crisp quality that signals the arrival of autumn. I had unpacked most of my essentials. My bed was set up in the master bedroom on the second floor, and I felt a genuine sense of accomplishment as I lay there in the darkness, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of my new home. Every house has its own language, its own collection of creaks and groans, and I told myself I just needed time to learn this one's vocabulary. Around 2 in the morning, I heard it for the first time, a soft shuffling sound like something being dragged across a wooden floor. It came from directly above me, from the attic. I lay there in bed, staring up at the ceiling, my heart rate slightly elevated but not panicked. Old houses make noise, I knew that. Thermal expansion, settling foundations. Maybe a raccoon or a squirrel had found its way into the attic space. I made a mental note to check it out in the morning, and eventually drifted back to sleep. But I didn't check it out in the morning. I got caught up in the chaos of settling in, unpacking boxes, setting up my home office, dealing with the endless parade of utilities and services that needed to be activated or transferred. The sound came again the next night, and the night after that, always around the same time, always that same soft shuffling. After the first week, I barely noticed it anymore. It had become part of the house's language, just another word in a dialect I was still learning. My name is David Chen, and I've always considered myself a rational person. I don't believe in ghosts or supernatural phenomena. I trust in logic and explanations that make sense within the framework of the physical world. So when things started getting stranger, my mind immediately began searching for reasonable explanations. Even when those explanations became increasingly far-fetched, the first truly odd incident happened about 3 weeks after I moved in. I came home from work on a Wednesday evening, exhausted from a long day of debugging code and sitting through pointless meetings. I kicked off my shoes in the entryway, loosened my tie, and headed to the kitchen to see what I could scrounge up for dinner. That's when I noticed it. The kitchen was clean. Not just clean, but spotless. The dishes I had left in the sink that morning were washed, dried, and put away. The counters were wiped down. Even the floor looked like it had been swept and mopped. I stood there in the doorway, my mind spinning through possibilities. Had I cleaned the kitchen that morning and somehow forgotten? No. I distinctly remember leaving those dishes, telling myself I'd deal with them after work. Had someone broken in just to clean my kitchen? That seemed absurd. Maybe I was losing my mind, experiencing some kind of fugue state where I performed tasks without conscious awareness. I checked the doors and windows. Everything was locked from the inside, just as I'd left them. No signs of forced entry, nothing missing nor out of place. In fact, things were more in place than they should have been. I tried to laugh it off, chalked it up to exhaustion playing tricks on my memory, and ordered a pizza. But then it happened again. And again, I would leave things slightly messy, nothing terrible, just the normal disarray of a single person living alone, and I would come home to find everything tidied up. At first, it was just the kitchen. Then it was the living room, then my bathroom. Never my bedroom, though. That always remained exactly as I'd left it, which seemed strange in retrospect, like whatever was cleaning my house had a boundary it wouldn't cross. I started testing it. I would deliberately leave things in specific positions, create little markers that would tell me if someone had been there. A book left open to a particular page, a cup placed at a certain angle on the counter, a pile of papers arranged in a specific order, and every time, without fail, these things would be moved or tidied when I returned home. The rational explanations were running out. I considered carbon monoxide poisoning, maybe causing me to forget my own actions, so I bought a detector and installed it. No problems detected. I thought maybe I had a very dedicated and extremely stealthy cleaning service that the previous owner had hired and forgotten to cancel, though how they were getting in remained a mystery. I even briefly wondered if I had developed some kind of split personality, though I had no other symptoms of dissociative identity disorder. Around the 6-week mark, I started noticing the smell. It was faint at first, easy to dismiss, but it grew stronger over time. A musty, organic odor that seemed to be coming from above, from the attic. It reminded me of unwashed clothes mixed with something else, something slightly sweet and rotten. I finally decided it was time to investigate the attic properly, to deal with whatever animal had likely died up there. The attic access was in the hallway ceiling between the 2 upstairs bedrooms. I got my ladder from the garage, set it up, and pushed open the wooden hatch. A shower of dust rained down on me, and that smell hit me like a physical force, making me gag. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed up, poking my head through the opening. The attic was exactly what you'd expect. Low ceiling with exposed rafters, pink insulation between the joists, old cardboard boxes stacked in corners, the accumulated debris of previous occupants. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing cobwebs and dust particles floating in the air. I didn't see any obvious animal carcasses or droppings, which was both a relief and a puzzle. Where was that smell coming from? I pulled myself fully into the attic, hunching over to avoid hitting my head on the rafters. The space was larger than I expected, stretching the full length of the house. As I moved deeper in, sweeping my flashlight across the darkness, I noticed something that made me pause. In the far corner, there was a clear area, a section where the dust had been disturbed, where the boxes had been moved aside to create a small open space. I walked over to investigate, my footsteps creaking on the wooden beams. The cleared area was roughly 6 feet by 6 feet, and in the center of it was a pile of blankets, an old sleeping bag, and what looked like a makeshift pillow made from bundled clothes. My heart started pounding. Someone had been living in my attic. Someone had made a nest up here, a hidden living space directly above my bedroom. I stood there frozen, my mind reeling. How long had this been going on? Who was it? Were they still coming here? The blankets looked relatively fresh, not covered in the thick dust that coated everything else. Next to the sleeping area, I saw other items. Empty food containers, water bottles, even a small battery-powered lamp. This wasn't just someone who had crashed here once or twice. This was a residence. My hands were shaking as I continued searching the space with my flashlight. I found more items scattered around, a notebook filled with handwriting I didn't recognize, some clothes that were definitely not mine. And then I saw something that made my blood turn to ice, a pile of photographs. I picked them up with trembling fingers and flipped through them. They were pictures of me. Pictures taken through windows, showing me in my house, in my yard, going about my daily life. Some were from before I moved in, showing me during the home inspection talking with the realtor. Others were more recent, taken in the past few weeks, Me sitting at my desk working, me cooking dinner, me watching TV in the living room, dozens of photographs chronicling my life from some hidden vantage point. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Someone had been watching me, documenting me, living above me this entire time. The clean kitchen, the tidied rooms, it all made horrible sense now. This person had access to my entire house, had been coming and going while I was at work, moving through my space, touching my things, invading every aspect of my privacy. I needed to get out of the attic, call the police, get help. But as I turned to leave, my flashlight beam caught something else. Something I had missed in my initial panic. On the wall near the sleeping area, someone had written directly on the wooden beams in black marker. Words and phrases, scattered and overlapping, some neat and careful, others scrawled in a frantic hand. David needs help. He doesn't know yet. I have to protect him. The others are coming. He's not safe alone. I watch him sleep. He trusts the wrong people. I'm the only one who sees the truth. The messages went on and on, covering several square feet of wood. My name appeared over and over, mixed with these paranoid, possessive statements. This wasn't just a squatter looking for a place to stay. This was someone obsessed with me specifically, someone who had built an entire delusional narrative around my life. I climbed down from the attic as fast as I could, my legs shaking so badly I nearly fell off the ladder. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed 911, but my hands were trembling so much I dropped it. The phone clattered on the hardwood floor, and in the sudden silence that followed, I heard it. The shuffling sound from above, the same sound I had been hearing every night for weeks. But now I was downstairs and the attic hatch was still open, and I knew exactly what was making that noise. Someone was up there right now. Someone was in my attic at this very moment, moving around in the darkness above my head. They had been there the whole time, hiding in the shadows while I explored their living space, watching me from some concealed position as I discovered their nest and their photographs and their obsessive wall writings. I grabbed my phone off the floor and ran. I didn't go for the front door, didn't try to leave the house. Some instinct told me I wouldn't make it, that whoever was up there would come down after me, would catch me before I could get outside. Instead, I ran into the master bedroom and locked the door, then pushed my dresser in front of it. My fingers were numb as I tried to dial 911 again, and this time I managed to complete the call. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house, I whispered, my voice cracking. Someone's been living in my attic. They're up there right now. The dispatcher kept me on the line asking questions, telling me officers were on their way. I sat on my bed with my back against the wall, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the sounds of my house. The shuffling had stopped. Everything was silent, but I knew they were still there, still somewhere above me, or maybe now inside the walls, moving through the spaces between rooms like a rat in a maze. Then I heard a new sound, footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate. They walked past my bedroom door and stopped. I held my breath, staring at the doorknob, waiting for it to turn. The dispatcher was still talking in my ear, but I couldn't focus on her words. All my attention was fixed on the door, on the thin barrier of wood and the dresser I had pushed against it. A voice came from the other side, muffled but clear enough to understand. It was male, soft, almost gentle. David, I'm not going to hurt you. I need you to understand that. Everything I've done has been to protect you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat had closed up with fear. I know you found my space, the voice continued. I know you're scared, but you have to listen to me. There are people who want to hurt you, David. People you work with, people you think are your friends. I've been watching them, watching how they look at you, how they talk about you when you're not around. They're planning something. This was insane. The delusions of someone deeply mentally ill. I wanted to scream at him to go away, to leave me alone, but I was terrified that engaging would make things worse. "I've been taking care of you," he said, "cleaning your house, making sure everything is just right. You're so busy, so stressed all the time. I wanted to help. I wanted to make things easier for you." The police dispatcher was telling me to stay quiet, to not engage, that officers were almost there. I could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. The voice outside my door took on a note of urgency. "They're going to take me away, David. The vulnerable. You need to understand what I've been trying to tell you. Your coworker, Marcus, he's been stealing your work, taking credit for your code. Your neighbor across the street, Mrs. Patterson, she's been going through your trash, looking for information about you. Your own sister's been lying to you about your mother's will. I know things, David. I see things that you don't see." Some of what he was saying was eerily specific. Marcus had been acting strange lately, and I had noticed some of my project contributions being attributed to him in team meetings. But that didn't mean anything. This man was clearly disturbed, probably piecing together random observations and building conspiracy theories around them. The sirens were very close now, pulling up outside my house. I heard car doors slamming, voices shouting, heavy footsteps on my front porch. The police were here. I was safe. Or at least I was going to be safe very soon. "I'm sorry it has to be this way," the voice said. And I heard footsteps retreating down the hallway. I heard the ladder creaking as he climbed back up into the attic. By the time the police broke through my front door and made their way upstairs, by the time they got my bedroom door open and found me sitting there on my bed, shaking and pale, the man was gone. They searched the entire house, the attic, every room, every closet. They found his living space, his photographs, his writings on the wall. They found evidence that he had been coming and going through a small vent in the attic that led to the outside, a vent he had modified to allow him to squeeze through. But the man himself had vanished into the night. The police took my statement, collected evidence, posted an officer outside my house for the night. They told me they would do everything they could to find him, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. This person had been living in my attic for weeks, maybe longer, and I hadn't noticed. He clearly knew how to stay hidden. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with every light on, jumping at every sound, seeing shadows move in my peripheral vision. The officer outside my door checked on me every hour, but his presence only provided marginal comfort. The violation I felt was absolute. My home, my sanctuary, had been invaded in the most intimate way possible. Every moment of privacy I thought I had over the past weeks had been an illusion. The next day, I called a locksmith and had every lock in the house changed. I installed a security system with cameras covering every entrance, every window, the attic access. I even put a lock on the attic hatch itself, though the police had already sealed the external vent. I took a week off work, unable to focus on anything but my fear and paranoia. The police identified the man from the photographs and writings. His name was Robert Finch, 43 years old, with a history of mental illness and stalking charges. He had apparently become fixated on me after seeing me at an open house months before I actually bought the property. He had done research, learned my name, my job, my routines. He had been planning this for a long time. But despite knowing who he was, they couldn't find him. He had no fixed address, no family, no regular contacts. He was a ghost in the system, someone who existed in the margins of society. The detective assigned to my case assured me they were doing everything they could, but as the days turned into weeks with no arrest, I began to accept that Robert Finch might never be caught. I thought about selling the house, moving somewhere else, starting over. But the rational part of my brain reminded me that running wouldn't solve anything. If Robert was as obsessed as he seemed, he would just find me again. At least here I had security measures in place, cameras, alarms. At least here I knew the terrain. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. I went back to work, though I was constantly distracted and paranoid. I checked my security cameras obsessively, scanning the footage for any sign of movement, any glimpse of a figure lurking in the shadows. I saw nothing. The weeks turned into months, and there was no sign of Robert Finch, but I never felt safe. Not really. Every time I came home, I would check every room, every closet, the attic, making sure I was truly alone. Every night, I would lie in bed listening to the house settling, unable to distinguish between innocent sounds and potential threats. The violation had left a mark on my psyche that I knew would never fully heal. It was early December, about 2 months after the initial discovery, when things took a darker turn. I came home from a late night at the office, tired and stressed from a project deadline. As I pulled into my driveway, my headlights swept across my front porch, and I saw something that made my heart stop. There was a box sitting on my doorstep, wrapped in brown paper with my name written on it in neat block letters. I sat in my car for several minutes, staring at the box, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I should call the police. I should not touch it, should not go anywhere near it. But some morbid curiosity, some need to know what was happening compelled me forward. I got out of the car slowly, approaching the porch like I was walking through a minefield. The box was about the size of a shoebox, surprisingly light when I picked it up. No ticking sounds, no strange smells. I brought it inside, set it on my kitchen table, and stared at it for another 10 minutes before finally, carefully, pulling off the wrapping paper. Inside was a collection of items, more photographs of me, recent ones taken within the past few weeks. He was still watching me, still out there documenting my life. There was also a USB drive and a folded piece of paper. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper and read the handwritten note. David, I'm sorry I had to leave so suddenly. I know you're scared, but I need you to understand that everything I've done has been out of love and concern for your safety. The USB drive contains evidence of the things I've been trying to warn you about. Please, look at it with an open mind. You're in danger, and I'm the only one who can help you. I'll be in touch soon. Stay safe. Or I should have called the police immediately. I should have turned over the box and its contents without looking at the USB drive. But that curiosity, that need to understand made me plug the drive into my laptop. What I found on it shook me to my core. There were folders full of documents, screenshots, photographs, all meticulously organized and labeled. One folder was titled Marcus and contained what appeared to be evidence of my coworker stealing my code, taking credit for my work. There were screenshots of Marcus's computer screen showing him copying files from the shared drive, emails to our boss taking credit for projects I had led. It was exactly what Robert had claimed. Another folder titled Mrs. F. Patterson contained surveillance photos of my neighbor going through my trash. Photographs of her in her house examining documents she had clearly taken from my garbage. In some photos, I could actually read the papers she was looking at. My bank statements, my utility bills, personal correspondence. There were more folders, each one revealing some violation of my privacy or betrayal by people I knew. My sister had indeed been lying about my mother's will. I saw emails between her and a lawyer discussing how to hide assets from me. A friend I had known since college was apparently spreading rumors about me online. Screenshots of forum posts and social media comments talking about me in cruel, mocking terms. Every paranoid claim Robert had made, every conspiracy theory he had shared through my bedroom door that night, was backed up with disturbing evidence. He had been watching everyone in my life, documenting their actions, compiling proof of their betrayals and violations, and he had been doing it, at least in his mind, to protect me. I felt sick, Not because I now believed Robert was right to do what he did, but because the violations were multiplying exponentially. It wasn't just Robert invading my privacy, it was everyone. My coworker was stealing from me, my neighbor was stalking me, my own family was deceiving me. The entire support structure of my life was run, and I had been blissfully unaware of it all. I called the police and turned over the USB drive. The detective was disturbed by its contents, but also professionally interested. This wasn't just evidence of Robert's stalking anymore. This was evidence of multiple crimes, multiple invasions of privacy, identity theft, fraud. The investigation expanded rapidly, pulling in more officers, more resources. Marcus was fired from his job after the evidence of code theft came to light. Mrs. Patterson was charged with harassment and identity theft. My sister was investigated for fraud related to my mother's estate. The friend from college deleted his social media accounts and disappeared from my life entirely. In the span of a few weeks, my entire social and professional circle imploded, leaving me more isolated than ever. And through it all, Robert Finch remained at large, a ghost haunting the periphery of my life. The police found evidence that he had been sleeping in various abandoned buildings around the city, moving from location to location, always staying a few steps ahead of them. He had become a subject of local media attention, the attic stalker, a cautionary tale about the dangers of mental illness and obsessive behavior. But to me, he was something more complicated than just a villain. He had violated me in the most intimate way possible, had invaded my home and my privacy in a way that left me traumatized and paranoid. But he had also revealed truths that I needed to know, had protected me in his own twisted way from people who were genuinely trying to hurt me. I hated him, and felt a strange, uncomfortable gratitude towards him in equal measure. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my house, watching security camera footage and jumping at every sound. The new year arrived, and with it came a cold snap that blanketed the city in snow and ice. I had started seeing a therapist to deal with the trauma and paranoia, but progress was slow. Trust, once shattered, is not easily rebuilt. It was mid-January, a Tuesday night, when I came home from work to find another box on my porch. This one was larger, heavier, and there was no wrapping paper, just plain cardboard with my name written on top in that same neat block lettering. I called the police before touching it, and we waited together for the bomb squad to arrive and examine it. It wasn't a bomb. Inside, packed carefully in bubble wrap and foam, was a laptop computer. The bomb squad cleared it as safe, and the police took it as evidence, but not before I saw the note taped to its lid. You need to see what's really happening. Check the security footage from your office building, December 18th at 11:47 p.m. The dancer assigned to my case, a tired-looking woman named Sarah Morrison, sighed when she read the note. He's still trying to communicate with you, still trying to pull you into his delusions. But she also looked into the security footage, because that's what good detectives do. They follow leads even when they seem to come from unreliable sources. And what she found on that footage changed everything. The video showed my office building late at night after everyone had gone home. A figure entered through a side door, someone who clearly knew the security codes. The figure went to my desk, spent about 20 minutes there, doing something to my computer. The video quality wasn't good enough to see exactly what, but the timestamp and the actions were clear. Someone had been tampering with my work computer. The IT department at my company examined my machine and found a keylogger and remote access software installed. Sophisticated tools that would have given someone complete access to everything I did on that computer. All my passwords, all my files, all my communications, everything. The software had been installed on December 18th at 11:52 p.m., just 5 minutes after the timestamp Robert had specified. Further investigation revealed that the figure in the video was someone from the IT department itself, a contractor named Julian Hayes who had been hired 3 months earlier. Julian was brought in for questioning and quickly confessed. He had been paid by a third party to install surveillance software on several employees' computers, including mine. He claimed he didn't know who had hired him, that all communication had been through encrypted channels and payment had been in cryptocurrency. But Robert had known. Somehow, Robert had been watching my office building, had documented this crime, had been trying to warn me about yet another violation of my privacy. The police updated their profile of Robert Finch, acknowledging that while his methods were illegal and traumatizing, his claims about threats to my safety had been largely accurate. Detective Morrison visited me at my house to discuss the findings. We sat in my living room, and she had the uncomfortable task of telling me that the case was growing more complex and disturbing by the day. "Here's what we know," she said, pulling out a folder full of documents. "Robert Finch has been monitoring your life for approximately 18 months, starting well before you purchased this house. We found evidence that he was stalking you at your previous apartment, though you never noticed. In that time, he documented numerous instances of people violating your privacy, stealing from you, and potentially planning to harm you." "But why?" I asked. "Why me? What did I do to become his obsession?" Detective Morrison shook her head. "We may never fully understand his motivations. People with his condition often fixate on someone for reasons that make sense only to them. Maybe he saw you as vulnerable, as someone who needed protection. Maybe it reminded him of someone from his past. Or maybe it was random and you were just unlucky enough to catch his attention." "What happens now?" I asked. "We keep looking for him," she said, "and we investigate all these other crimes he's uncovered. The situation is unprecedented, honestly. We've never had a stalker who was also functioning as a vigilante investigator, exposing genuine crimes against his victim." She left, and I sat alone in my house, processing everything. My life had become a nightmare. But the nightmare was multi-layered and complex in ways I never could have imagined. I was simultaneously the victim of an obsessed stalker and the beneficiary of his obsessive surveillance. People I had trusted were violating me, and the person violating me most intimately was the one trying to protect me from them. February arrived, and with it came a breakthrough in the case. The police tracked down Robert Finch to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. They surrounded the building, called in negotiators, prepared for a standoff. But when they finally breached the warehouse, they found something that no one had anticipated. Robert Finch was dead. He had been dead for approximately 2 weeks, his body hidden in a small room he had been using as a shelter. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, and the scene showed signs of a struggle. This wasn't suicide. Someone had murdered Robert Finch. The investigation pivoted immediately. If Robert was dead, then who had delivered that laptop to my porch in mid-January? Who had left that note directing the police to the security footage? The timeline didn't add up. Robert had been killed in early January, but the laptop had appeared on my porch weeks later. Detective Morrison came back to my house with a team of investigators. They examined the box, the laptop, the note, searching for any clues about who had actually delivered it, and that's when the horrifying truth began to emerge. The handwriting on the note wasn't Robert's. It was similar, carefully crafted to look like his, but forensic analysis revealed subtle differences. Someone had been imitating Robert, using his identity to continue communicating with me after his death. And if someone had killed Robert and then impersonated him, that meant I was dealing with something far more sinister than a single obsessed stalker. "We need to look at everyone who had access to the evidence we collected from Robert's attic," Detective Morrison said. "Someone saw his writings, his photographs, his methods, and decided to copy them. Or worse, someone was working with Robert all along and would just never know about them. The investigation became a manhunt. The police reviewed security footage from my neighborhood, looking for anyone who might have delivered that laptop. They found a figure, dressed in dark clothes with a hood, obscuring their face, approaching my porch at 3:07 a.m. on January 14th. The figure placed the box, looked directly at my security camera for a moment, then walked away. Something about the way they moved, the deliberate pause, the direct look at the camera, felt like a message, like they wanted me to know they were aware of my security measures and unafraid of them. I was losing my mind. The paranoia that had been building since I first discovered Robert in my attic now reached a fever pitch. If Robert was dead and someone else was continuing his work, then I had no idea who might be watching me, who might be living in my walls, or my attic, or somewhere else in my house. The security system that had provided some measure of comfort now felt inadequate. If someone could kill Robert Finch, someone who had proven himself to be highly skilled at surveillance and evasion, then what chance did I have? The police offered to relocate me, to put me in a safe house while they continued their investigation. I refused. I was tired of running, tired of being afraid. I wanted this to end, wanted to confront whatever was happening head on. Detective Morrison wasn't happy with my decision, but she respected it. She increased the police presence around my house, had officers do regular drive-bys stating close contact. A week passed with no new incidents. Then 2 weeks. I started to wonder if maybe the person who had killed Robert had gotten what they wanted and moved on to some other obsession or target. But I should have known better. This wasn't over. It was never going to be over until someone ended it. It was a Friday night in late February when they came for me. I was in my living room watching TV, trying desperately to maintain some semblance of a normal life. The security system showed nothing unusual, all the cameras displaying empty streets and quiet yards. I had checked every room in the house before settling down, a ritual I now perform multiple times per day. I must have dozed off on the couch because I was jolted awake by a sound from upstairs. My heart immediately began racing, adrenaline flooding my system. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera app, checking the feeds from the upstairs hallway and bedrooms. Nothing. Everything looked normal. But I had heard something. I was certain of it. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and moved toward the stairs. I should call the police, I thought. I should not investigate this on my own. But some part of me was tired of being a victim, tired of hiding and waiting for others to protect me. I wanted to confront whatever was in my house, wanted to face it and end this nightmare once and for all. I climbed the stairs slowly, my phone in one hand, a baseball bat I had started keeping by the front door in the other. The upstairs hallway was dark, lit only by the nightlight I had installed near the attic access. Everything seemed still, peaceful, but I could feel a presence, could sense that I wasn't alone. I checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the spare room. All empty. That left only one place. I looked up at the attic hatch and my blood turned to ice. The padlock I had installed was hanging open, the hatch slightly ajar. Someone was in my attic right now, or had been very recently. I should leave. I should run downstairs and out the front door and not stop until I was far away from this house. But I couldn't. I was frozen, staring up at that dark opening, the baseball bat heavy in my hand. I needed to know. I needed to see who was up there. Needed to understand what was happening to me. I pulled down the ladder slowly, wincing at every creak and groan. I started climbing, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. As my head rose above the level of the attic floor, I turned on my phone's flashlight, sweeping the beam across the darkness. He was there. Not Robert, but someone else. A man sitting in the same corner where Robert had made his nest, sitting in that same kneeling position, facing the wall. He was wearing dark clothes, his hair matted and dirty, his body completely still. I could see his lips moving, whispering something too quiet to hear. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice cracking with fear. "What do you want?" The man stopped whispering and slowly turned his head to look at me. His face was gaunt, pale, his eyes sunken and dark. He smiled, and it was one of the most unsettling expressions I had ever seen. "Hello, David," he said in a voice that was eerily calm. "I've been waiting for you." "Did you kill Robert?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Robert?" The man laughed softly. "Robert was weak. He got too attached, too emotional. He couldn't see the bigger picture. But I can. I understand what needs to happen." "What needs to happen?" I asked, backing down a step on the ladder. "What are you talking about?" The man stood up slowly, unfolding from his kneeling position with an unsettling grace. "You were chosen, David. Not by Robert, but by me. I chose you months before Robert even knew you existed. I guided him to you, fed him information about you, encouraged his obsession. Robert was just a tool, a means to an end." My mind was reeling. Why? Why would you do that?" "Because I needed to isolate you," the man said, taking a step toward me. "I needed to strip away all your connections, all your support systems. I needed you alone, vulnerable, dependent on no one but yourself. And once Robert had done that work, once he had revealed all the betrayals and violations, he had served his purpose." My grip tightening on the baseball bat. "I freed him from his delusions," the man corrected, "and now I can move forward with the real work. You see, David, you're special. You possess something that I need, something that I've been searching for my entire life." "I don't have anything," I protested. "I'm just a software developer. I'm nobody special." The man laughed again. "You really don't see it, do you? Even after everything that's happened, you haven't figured out what makes you valuable." He took another step toward me, and I backed down another rung on the ladder. "Stay away from me," I warned, raising the baseball bat. "I'll call the police." "The police can't help you, David. They never could. You think Detective Morrison is investigating Robert's murder? She's part of it. She's been feeding me information about the investigation this whole time, helping me stay ahead of them." "You're lying," I said, but doubt was creeping into my mind. How had this man known about Detective Morrison by name? Am I? He pulled out a phone and showed me the screen. There were text messages, a conversation between him and someone saved as Morrison. The messages discussed evidence, investigation details, things that only someone inside the case would know. My world was tilting, reality fracturing around me. If I couldn't trust the police, if Detective Morrison was compromised, then who could I trust? I was completely alone, exactly as this man had intended. "What do you want from me?" I asked desperately. The man's smile widened. "I want you to come with me, willingly or unwillingly. The choice is yours. But either way, you're leaving this house tonight." I made my decision in an instant. I dropped down the ladder, skipping the last few rungs and hitting the floor hard. I heard the man curse and start climbing down after me. I ran for the stairs, my mind focused on one goal: get out of the house, get to safety, figure out what to do next. I was halfway down the stairs when he caught me. His hand grabbed my ankle, and I fell forward, tumbling down the remaining steps and landing hard on the floor below. Pain exploded through my shoulder and ribs, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The baseball bat had flown from my hand, clattering somewhere out of reach. The man descended the stairs calmly, in no hurry. I tried to crawl away, but my body wasn't responding properly. He grabbed me by the collar and dragged me back, his strength surprising for his thin frame. He flipped me over onto my back, and I saw he was holding a syringe, the needle gleaming in the dim light. "This will be easier if you don't fight," he said, bringing the needle toward my neck. I struck out desperately, my fist connecting with his face. He jerked back, more surprised than hurt, and I scrambled away on my hands and knees. I made it to the living room, grabbed a lamp from an end table, and hurled it at him. He dodged easily, but it bought me a few precious seconds. I ran for the front door, my fingers fumbling with the locks. Behind me, I could hear his footsteps, could feel him getting closer. I got the door open and stumbled out onto the porch, screaming for help, hoping someone would hear me, hoping the police officers who were supposed to be watching my house would appear. But the street was empty. No police cars, no neighbors, no one to help. I ran toward my car, but I knew I wouldn't make it in time. He was right behind me, his hand reaching for my shoulder. And then headlights flooded the street. A car came screaming around the corner, tires squealing, and slammed to a stop between me and my attacker. The door flew open and Detective Morrison jumped out, her gun drawn. "Get down!" she shouted. I dropped to the ground and shots rang out. 3 quick cracks that echoed through the quiet neighborhood. I looked up to see the man from my attic stumbling backward, dark stains spreading across his chest. He fell to the ground, the syringe rolling from his hand. Detective Morrison rushed to him, kicked the syringe away, checked for a pulse. Then she looked at me, her face pale and drawn. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, unable to speak. My mind was struggling to process what had just happened. She called for backup on her radio, then came over and helped me to my feet. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. We had reports of a disturbance on the other side of the neighborhood. I think he set it up, a distraction to pull us away from your house." He said you were helping him," I managed to say. "He showed me text messages from your phone." Detective Morrison's expression hardened. "My phone was stolen 2 weeks ago. I filed a report, got a new one. If he had my old phone, he could have faked those messages, made it look like I was communicating with him." Backup arrived, an ambulance, more police cars. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. They found identification in his wallet. Thomas Vance, 51 years old, with an extensive criminal history including kidnapping, assault, and fraud. He had spent time in psychiatric facilities, had been diagnosed with various personality disorders, had been released only 6 months earlier on a technicality. Over the following weeks, the full picture began to emerge. Thomas had indeed orchestrated everything from the beginning. He had identified Robert Finch as someone he could manipulate, someone whose mental illness made him vulnerable to suggestion and control. Thomas had fed Robert information about me, encouraged his obsession, guided his actions, all while staying in the shadows and observing. When Robert had served his purpose, when he had successfully isolated me and exposed all the betrayals in my life, Thomas had killed him and taken over. The laptop delivery, the note about the security footage, that had all been Thomas continuing Robert's work to further cement his control over my life. But what Thomas wanted from me, what made me special in his eyes, remained a mystery. The police searched his belongings, his living spaces, trying to understand his motivations. They found notebooks full of research about me, about my family history, about my ancestors. Thomas had been obsessed with some theory that my family had a genetic trait he was interested in, some biological characteristic that he believed he could somehow extract or replicate. It was pseudoscientific nonsense, the delusions of a deeply disturbed mind. But to Thomas, had been real enough to justify everything he had done, real enough to manipulate Robert, to orchestrate an elaborate surveillance operation, to plan a kidnapping. I sold the house. I couldn't stay there, couldn't live in a place that held so much trauma and fear. I moved to a different city, got a new job, started over as completely as I could. I still see a therapist twice a week, still struggle with paranoia and trust issues, still check every corner of every room I enter. The police assured me it was over, that Thomas Vance had been working alone, that there was no one else coming for me. But I learned a hard lesson through all of this. The world is full of people whose motivations we cannot understand, whose actions we cannot predict, whose obsessions can reach out and entangle innocent lives in ways that are random and terrible and completely beyond our control. I think about Robert Finch sometimes, the man who lived in my attic, who watched me sleep, who violated my privacy in the most intimate way possible. He was a victim too, in his own way, manipulated by someone even more disturbed than himself. He thought he was protecting me, thought he was a guardian angel watching over someone vulnerable. In reality, he was a pawn in someone else's game, a tool to be used and discarded. And I think about all the betrayals he uncovered, all the people who were violating my trust and privacy, because that part was real. Marcus really was stealing my work. Mrs. Patterson really was going through my trash. My sister really was hiding assets from me. Robert's surveillance revealed genuine crimes, genuine violations, even as he himself was committing the greatest violation of all. The human capacity for invasion, for crossing boundaries, for justifying terrible actions in the name of twisted logic, is something I now understand in ways I wish I didn't. We all have secrets. We all have spaces we believe are private, protected, sacrosanct. But the truth is that those spaces are vulnerable, penetrable. And there are people out there who see boundaries not as walls to respect, but as challenges to overcome. I live alone now in my new apartment, in a building with security and cameras and locks that I check obsessively. I don't make close friends, don't invite people into my space, don't trust easily. Some might say that Thomas Vance and Robert Finch succeeded in breaking me, in creating the isolated, paranoid person I've become, and maybe they did, but I prefer to think of it as adaptation, as learning to survive in a world that revealed itself to be far more dangerous than I ever imagined. Every night before I go to sleep, I check every room, every closet, every space large enough for someone to hide. I listen to the sounds of my building, cataloging the normal noises, staying alert for anything out of place. I know this isn't a healthy way to live. I know I'm allowing the trauma to control me, but I also know what it's like to feel safe and be wrong, to trust in the security of your own home and discover that safety was an illusion all along. There's a certain kind of innocence that, once lost, can never be recovered. The belief that you are alone when you appear to be alone. The trust that your private moments are actually private. The faith that the people in your life are who they claim to be. I lost all of that in the span of a few months, and the person I am now is fundamentally different from the person I was before I found that man praying in my attic. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder about the moments I didn't know I was being watched, the times I thought I was alone but wasn't, the conversations I had with myself, the vulnerable moments, the private breakdowns. They were all witnessed, documented, absorbed into someone else's obsession. It's a violation that extends backward through time, tainting memories that I thought belonged only to me. And I wonder about the future, about whether I'll ever be able to trust again, to open myself up to the possibility of genuine connection with another person. Because connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trust, and trust is something I no longer know how to give. Maybe someday I'll heal enough to take that risk again. Maybe someday the therapy will work. The fear will fade, the paranoia will loosen its grip on my life. But for now, I remain vigilant. I remain alone. I remain haunted by the memory of a man kneeling in my attic, whispering prayers that were never meant to save me, only to bind me to someone else's deranged vision of protection. And I remain aware, always aware, that the sounds I hear in the night might not be innocent, that the shadows in the corners might hold secrets, that the privacy I think I have might once again prove to be an illusion. This is my life now. This is what I became after I found that man in my attic. And while I survived, while I escaped, I carry the scars of that experience with me every day. They're invisible to others, hidden beneath a facade of functionality and normalcy. But I know they're there. I feel them every time I enter a room, every time I hear an unfamiliar sound, every time I'm alone. The question isn't whether I'll ever feel truly safe again. I know the answer to that. The question is whether I can learn to live with the fear, to function despite it, to build some kind of life within the walls I've erected around myself. Some days I think I can. Other days I'm not so sure, but I keep trying because the alternative is to let them win, to let Thomas Rance and Robert Finch and all the people who violated my trust succeed in destroying me completely, and I refuse to give them that satisfaction. I refuse to let my story end with defeat, so I continue forward, one day at a time, one checked lock at a time, one verified empty room at a time. This is survival. This is what it looks like to come through something like this and keep going. It's not pretty, it's not heroic, but it's real, and reality, I've learned, is the only thing I can truly count on anymore.